Alrighty guys, it's Qaaman here today and I got a little bit of an announcement for you guys. So unfortunately my Blue Yeti microphone broke and I'm using my xCloud headset to talk to you guys. And if you guys think the audio is good enough, let me know in the comment section below in addition to the YouTube poll that I will be posting. If not, if you don't think it's good enough, I'll buy another Blue Yeti microphone and we can continue from there. In addition to this guys, I also wanted to tell you guys about my new series where I want to have an uncut conversation with you guys in addition to my other videos, where this won't really be as edited as the other conversations, but I give you guys a very honest, open-ended thought that I have about something, because I feel like a lot of times what gets lost on YouTube through all the fancy editing and the graphics and all that stuff is that you guys might lose the conversational connection between the YouTuber, and I sometimes think these open-ended conversations really gives you a real honest and true feeling about how I could feel about certain things, and these are more opinionated, so this is more of a water cooler conversation. So what do I have to talk to you guys about today? Well, I want to talk to you guys about Dragon Ball Super, and obviously many of you guys would know that there was a Jump Festa announcement that Super will be at the upcoming Jump Festa this December, and since this will be taking place in December around the same time as the movie, this suggests that Dragon Ball Super should be returning for 2019. And to tell you guys the truth, you know, I've noticed that the community has been quite mixed on this. Some people want Super to die, some people want Super to really come back. There's been very mixed opinions, and to be honest, I'm actually quite mixed on this myself, and I actually have several reasons why I think Dragon Ball Super should come back and ways that Dragon Ball Super can improve in 2019 as opposed to the last few years that we've had the series. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is dealing with Goten and Trunks. Now, I feel like this is something that can really be make or break, because Dragon Ball is a shonen anime, and in a shonen anime you always want to have young male characters to continue that whole fostering of appealing to young males and teenage boys. But at the same time though guys, if you really look at Dragon Ball, Goten and Trunks are so insignificant as characters to the franchise that I don't really think you need to have them as kids to follow the shonen trope, since most of the characters that Dragon Ball fans really like are all the characters that are adults or have been in the series for a long time. So following that young protagonist really appealed when you had characters like Goku and Gohan in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. But when looking at Dragon Ball Super, it's like, well, you keep them as kids, but Dragon Ball Super doesn't really need a child protagonist. And if you look at Dragon Ball GT, one of the biggest issues with GT, and this video isn't to bash GT, but canon or not, one of the biggest issues with GT was actually the fact that they made Goku a kid again, and it took away a lot of the development that we saw throughout Goku's character from Dragon Ball all the way up to Dragon Ball Z. So making him a kid again just created this, you know, this shonen trope that wasn't really necessary because the show was already developed with Goku as an adult. So in looking at it from that point of view guys, it might seem like you might want to appeal to young boys, but in reality you don't really have to, and that's why I think that Goten and Trunks should age. In addition to this, I also think that because of how old Goten and Trunks are, they're approximately 15 and 16 years old if you do mathematics from Pan's birth up until the end of Dragon Ball Z, and I could do a whole video talking on how old they are exactly, but since they're approximately 15 and 16 after what would be the Broly movie, it's kind of getting to the point of being ridiculous that Trunks is 16 and should be the same age that he went back to go kill Frieza and King Cold, but still looks like a 7 or 8 year old boy. And I really think at this point in the series it has to change with Goten and Trunks. And now that we have that out of the way, let's go on to number 2 here. So what I also have is, I think Dragon Ball Super needs to go past the 10-year time skip. And there are two specific reasons for this. By restraining Dragon Ball Super to this Dragon Ball Z time gap, first of all, what it does is it makes the series extremely predictable, because we all know that Goku will eventually end up with Oob, and at the same time, if you keep Dragon Ball Super in this 10-year time gap, there's only so much you could do within the span of these years, and things start to become awkward, as I said before, with Goten and Trunks not aging and all these other things. If you go past that and have a time skip with Goku training with Oob, or have like a quick episode where you could just kind of sum up what Goku did with Oob and then go into the future, future, that actually makes it a lot more interesting, because now Goku has a new plot convenience with Oob to train, and in addition to this, you make the series unpredictable. Now, I understand some of you guys will be saying, well then what does this now do for Dragon Ball GT, because now Super is going to be following what GT did. Not necessarily, because first of all, there are inconsistencies between Super, GT, and Z all at once, and a lot of the inconsistencies are actually more for Dragon Ball Super than with Dragon Ball GT, as GT was canon to Dragon Ball Z's anime, and Super is like somewhat canon to Dragon Ball Z's anime. But the thing is though, guys, is that if you go into the future, there is still a time period after Goku flew out with Oob, but before Dragon Ball GT, where you can actually continue this series. And considering the fact that Super and GT are so different in terms of the direction that the series went into, if you rewrite Super completely without even including any element of GT, it doesn't even matter, because the show is so different and broken apart from GT anyways that it doesn't even matter. So ultimately, by having an original plot that we don't know what direction it's going to go, by having Oob as a young male protagonist to fit the shonen trope, and by making Dragon Ball a much more rich show by having all of these different things you can include from the Tournament of Power, you can have a completely original story with Dragon Ball Super that branches out from both Z and GT, but we wouldn't care as Dragon Ball fans because we'd watch it anyways. And that's why I ultimately think that going past this 10-year time skip is the best direction for the show to go. And in addition to going past the 10-year time skip, guys, we also got to talk about exploring other universes. The first universes that come to mind are 11, 6, and 2, some of the more prominent universes in the Tournament of Power. And I think with Universe 11, since it's such a dangerous universe that requires the Pride Troopers, I definitely think that one of the things that the show can do is it can have characters like Goku and his friends going over to these universes and fighting against some of these powerful characters that might give Jiren or Toppo or any of these characters a rough time. Because since the Pride Troopers are such a large organization, you have to assume how big their threats are. In terms of Universe 6, you could obviously include Kale and Caulifla and Kaba training with Goku and Vegeta. And last but not least, I want to talk to you guys about Universe 2. Now, Ribrianne was one of the more prominent characters of Universe 2, and although a lot of fans might not like her, she is a character that I could see having somewhat of a plot involvement in future episodes. And in addition to this, guys, I think one thing Dragon Ball Super touched on is the concept of other races in different universes. So we saw that Jamise is a Yard Rat, and we also saw that Zarbuto is a Tuffle or Safurian from Universe 2. And since Universe 2 is not a twin of Universe 7 and is a twin of Universe 11, it really brings up this concept of how these different races exist in universes that are not twins, and I think that would really expand the Dragon Ball universe to go into Universe 2. And in addition to this, guys, I think what we should also talk about is dealing with less fanfiction. So yes, I know that Dragon Ball is a huge money-making machine, and like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all these huge series out there, if you put Dragon Ball in the title, people are going to watch it, people are going to buy it, people are going to do anything Dragon Ball related. It's that huge. But at the same time, though, guys, I do feel like Super's kind of appealed a lot to fanfiction when you look at female Super Saiyans, especially a female Broly, evil Goku, even though Turles was originally the evil Goku, and bringing Frieza back so many times, even though Frieza's not really fan fiction, but it does appeal to fan interest to just bring back such a fan favorite villain. And I think that although we love these characters and we love these fan fiction ideas, Super has sometimes felt much more about marketing instead of telling an original organic story. And I understand that Dragon Ball is a business and you want to do what's in the best interest of the business. However, I do think that it could be a lot more balanced if the manga catches up to the anime with this long hiatus and we have a much more organic story that really tries to make complete sense within Dragon Ball's context instead of just trying to appeal to making dollars for Toei Animation. And although Toei does want to make money, I don't think that marketing has to kill how good a show actually is. And last but not least, guys, I think the last thing that Dragon Ball Super has to do more than anything else is the fact that it needs to make new villains. And what do I mean by this? I feel like Dragon Ball has truly missed out on a lot of villains in Dragon Ball Super. First of all, Beerus was like a pseudo-villain in the Battle of Gods arc, Frieza was a recycled villain in the Resurrection of F arc, Champa was more of a rival to Beerus than an actual villain, Zamasu was a true, genuine, organic, original villain, but at the same time, he was only in one arc, and then the Tournament of Power, there wasn't really any true villain, it was more about just a tournament setting. So, looking at all of that, I think that Dragon Ball ultimately works best when a villain comes in, because first of all, a villain always poses a threat to the main characters at hand, and in addition to this, a villain always brings out the best in the characters because they all have to unite to fight against them. Although Annie Raza wasn't technically a villain, look how that episode actually turned out with Annie Raza versus all of the Tournament of Power fighters. You felt the tension and how serious that fight felt, regardless of if you liked the episode or not, because of how Annie Raza posed a threat and how he almost killed Android 18. And I think when you have an actual villain in Dragon Ball Super, it makes everything better. And in terms of actually creating a villain within Dragon Ball Super, other than Zeno who could just erase everything from scratch, I think having a God of Destruction versus Mortal War would be a cool idea, or something like that, where you have characters that actually pose a genuine threat. Or if you want to go back to an old fan theory, you could have the evil Grand Priest or something like that, where you have an established character that poses a threat to the characters that we already know, in order to make an actual good versus evil storyline, instead of we just want to test our power over and over again. And I definitely think that a new villain would definitely take Dragon Ball Super into a new and a fresh direction. In 2019, let me know 5 or more ideas that you think the Dragon Ball Super should do if it were to actually come back, and certain ideas that you have for the franchise going forward. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys. And if you hear this video on YouTube, that means I thought the audio was pretty decent.